Jared Taylor, also known as Samuel Jared Taylor, founded the New Century Foundation, a self-styled think tank known primarily for American Renaissance, a white supremacist journal and companion website. The journal, which Taylor edits, promotes pseudoscientific studies that attempt to demonstrate the intellectual and cultural superiority of whites, and publishes articles on the supposed decline of American society because of integrationist social policies. American Renaissance generally avoids the crude bigotry and stereotyping characteristic of many other racist publications, and Taylor himself personally refrains from anti-Semitism. Born September 1951. Residence, Oaktown, Virginia. Organization, the New Century Foundation. Publication, American Renaissance. Education, B.A. Yale University, 1973. M.S. Institute of Political Studies, Paris, 1978. Ideology, Intellectualized White Supremacy. Books. Author of Paved with Good Intentions, The Failure of Race Relations in Contemporary America, 1992. And Shadow of the Rising Sun, a critical review of the Japanese Miracle, 1983. Edited or contributed to various other books, including Essential Writings on Race by Samuel Francis, 2007. Race and the American Prospect, 2006. A Race Against Time, Racial Heresies for the 21st Century, 2003. And The Real American Dilemma, Race, Immigration, and the Future of America, 1998. Affiliations. Taylor is on the editorial advisory body of Citizens Informer, the newspaper of the White Supremacist Council of Conservative Citizens, has contributed to the Occidental Quarterly, a racist journal, and has been a member of the board of directors on the National Policy Institute, a racist think tank. Taylor promotes his views by attacking racial, ethnic, and religious diversity, which he calls one of the most divisive forces on the planet, and therefore dangerous. Through speeches delivered at the biennial American Renaissance conferences, books, pamphlets, and articles, and public appearances via mainstream venues including television shows and universities, Taylor promotes the idea that racial segregation is natural and society is best organized among racially homogeneous lines. He maintains ties to a variety of racist organizations, publications, and individuals, both domestic and international. And many of North America's leading intellectual racists have written for American Renaissance or have addressed the biennial American Renaissance conferences. Recent activity. Jared Taylor has used both mainstream and extremist venues, including a cable television network, universities, radio, and conferences to promote his racist ideas. On March 13, 2008, a reported crowd of more than 150 students, faculty, and staff members attended a speech delivered by Taylor at the College of William and Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia. Press accounts of the event noted that the speech focused on the idea that diversity is a negative for society. According to the Flat Hat, a student newspaper at the school, Taylor was invited to speak by a student acting independently of any organised group. The event received extensive coverage in the local media. From February 22nd to 24th, 2008, Taylor held the 8th Biennial American Renaissance Conference in Hemdern, Virginia. The event, which is named after the print and online white supremacist journal and website that Taylor runs, brought together various speakers from the United States and Europe to present speeches on race-related topics. Approximately 300 people attended the event, including well-known extremists such as Don Black, who runs the white supremacist website stormfront.org, Gordon Baum, head of the Council of Conservative Citizens, a white supremacist organization that was the successor to the racist, anti-immigrationist white citizens councils of the 1950s and 1960s. Mark Weber, head of the Institute for Historical Review, a Holocaust denial organization. William Regnery, a funder of racist organizations and publications, including the Occidental Quarterly, a racist journal whose articles often focus on race and intelligence. Speakers at the conference included J. Philippe Rushton, head of the Pioneer Fund, who promotes eugenics and an alleged link between race and intelligence. Bruno Gollnisch, a member of the National Front, a far-right French political party who lamented the existence of the European Union for what he saw as its undemocratic nature and assault on national sovereignty. Jared Taylor, who discussed why the majority of whites do not accept race realism, the idea that differences are real and that it is natural and healthy for groups to segregate along racial lines. Other talks covered a range of topics, from an insider look at Mexicans to a modest proposal evoking for a white racial state. Taylor received mainstream press coverage in several venues related to protests of the event, which were staged on the conference's second day, February 23rd. According to media accounts, various anti-racist groups organised the protests. In December 2007, the Jewish Defense Organization, a militant Jewish group, had also announced plans to protest the conference. A Washington Post article in connection with the story quoted Taylor as saying that genetics account for differences in intelligence between the races and for inferior test scores by blacks compared with whites, and by whites compared with Asians. On November 19, 2007, Taylor spoke about his racist views on the political cesspool, a now defunct Tennessee-based radio program on which neo-Nazis, Holocaust deniers and white supremacists make regular appearances. He had appeared on the show at least 10 times. In June 2007, he was a featured speaker at a conference of the C of CC. Taylor is also on the editorial advisory board of Citizens Informer, the C of CC's newspaper. In April 2007, Taylor delivered a lecture entitled Multiculturalism and Racial Diversity, Strength or Weakness, at Clemson University in South Carolina. A student group, the Clemson Conservatives, had invited him, and he spoke to a group of students, faculty and members of the public. During the lecture, Taylor implied that international hostility directed at the United States is due to the country's current racial diversity. He also said it was a mistake to assume it was wrong to prefer the company of people similar to oneself. It is universal, and I think there's every reason to believe there are innate biological reasons. In the United States, this kind of preference is recognized and encouraged and institutionalized so long as the people who are expressing this preference are not white. Perhaps Taylor's most notable appearance of recent years occurred in January and March of 2007 in Halifax, Nova Scotia, a large island off Canada's Atlantic coast. In November 2006, Professor David Devine, the chair of the Black Canadian Studies Department at Dalhousie University in Halifax, agreed to debate Taylor on the merits of racial diversity, an event originally scheduled for January 15, 2007, Martin Luther King Jr. Day that year. In December, Devine rescinded Taylor's invitation to the debate. Taylor nevertheless reserved a room at a hotel in Halifax to deliver a speech on January 16, 2007, and advertised the event with flyers on the campus of Dalhousie University. The event garnered widespread publicity in Nova Scotia when Taylor was physically removed from the room at the hotel by protesters, some of them masked. A television reporter present at the event recorded the protesters' actions on video. CTV, a Canadian television station, interviewed Taylor the following day as part of their coverage of the story. Then, in March 2007, Taylor returned to Halifax to debate the philosophy professor Peter March on the radio, as St. Mary's University, March's host institution, declined to sponsor an on-campus debate. The events created a flurry of opinion pieces in Canadian newspapers debating the merits of allowing Taylor to speak and the treatment he had received from the protesters. Taylor's greatest exposure on American media was on CNN, where he was part of a guest panel debating race on the Paula Zahn Now show on December 12, 2006. The panel also included Michael Eric Dyson, a well-known professor of African American Studies at Georgetown University. During the show, Taylor repeated his oft-stated position that he believes in complete freedom of association and thinks it's natural for races to segregate themselves from one another. Taylor also appeared at the University of Texas, Arlington, on April 28, 2006, to debate Professor Jose Angel Gutierrez. The college Republicans sponsored the debate, whose topic was Hispanicization, good or bad for America. During the debate, Taylor said that 23% of Hispanics are poor, that they were 3 times more likely to commit a violent crime than whites, and that youth gangs are becoming overwhelmingly a Hispanic problem. Reportedly, nearly 400 people attended the on-campus event, which received mainstream press coverage. The writer of the American Renaissance article about the event concluded, "My only complaint about the debate was that the audience was not 10 times larger." A particularly eventful meeting of the biennial American Renaissance Conference took place earlier that year, on the weekend of February 24th to 26th, 2006, in Herndon, Virginia. The gathering attracted 300 people, all of them white, nearly all of them male. Speakers included J. Philippe Rushton, Nick Griffin, head of the far-right British National Party, and Gordon Baum. Tensions between anti-Semites and Jews who attended the conference came to a head when a well-known racist and anti-Semite, David Duke, who was not a scheduled presenter, accused Jews of being a power that has led to the internal destruction of our will and spirit during a question and answer section. Some of the members of the audience responded enthusiastically to his comments, which led to a Jewish attendee to rebuke Duke. Taylor addressed the incident in the May 2006 issue of American Renaissance, writing that, while Jews are equal participants in the American Renaissance, he has taken no explicit position on Jewish matters. He also upheld the role of Jews in society as subject for debate on par with homosexuality and foreign policy, but noted that an American Renaissance conference was not an appropriate venue for that debate. Ideology. Jared Taylor calls his views race realism, and himself a believer in complete freedom of association. He advocates voluntary segregation as a natural expression of racial solidarity and denies that his views constitute white supremacism or white separatism. Viewing world conflict and societal problems as derivative of race, religious, and ethnic diversity, Taylor upholds racial homogeny as the key to fostering a peaceful coexistence. He sees Japan, where he lived until he was 16 years old with his missionary parents, as an example of a racially homogeneous society. He views Asians generally as genetically superior in intelligence to whites, who he, in turn, sees as genetically superior in intelligence to blacks. Taylor generally promotes his views through articles published in American Resistance, the white supremacist journal he edits. In the articles, he often argues that racial diversity is a negative for society, as in Integration Has Failed, the lead article in the February 2008 issue of the publication. His recent writings have promoted such themes as a genetic basis for the difference in intelligence between races, the alleged benefits of racial homogeny, and a propensity among blacks to commit crimes at higher levels than whites, and an alleged reconquista of the American Southwest by Mexicans. Being careful to couch his language in purported scientific research and academic jargon, he often roots his findings in what he describes as predetermined factors, including a lower IQ and higher blood testosterone in blacks. During one of at least 10 appearances on The Political Cesspool, a now defunct Tennessee-based radio show that often gave a platform to anti-Semites and white supremacists, Taylor said, "Nature has dealt blacks an unfortunate hand when it comes to crime. Blacks," he argued in his 1999 pamphlet, The Colour of Crime, "are more prone to criminal activity than whites," a position from which he justifies the use of racial profiling in community policing. Taylor also views whites as the lone racial group in America unable to proclaim racial solidarity, and calls Latinos more dedicated to race and homeland than the United States of America. As expressed in his appearance on CNN's Paul Zahn Now in December 2006, Taylor sees whites as singularly oppressed in contemporary American society and claims that they cannot use the N-word in public for fear of losing their jobs and reputations. Taylor eschews anti-Semitism. Seeing Jews as white, greatly influential, and the conscience of society, Taylor rather seeks to partner with Jews who share his views on race and racial diversity. 4 out of the 10 speakers in the initial American Renaissance Conference in 1994 were Jews, including Michael Levin, a racist professor at the City University of New York and author of Why Race Matters, and Rabbi Meyer Schiller, then head of the Yeshiva University High School for Boys in New York. Jews have been speakers and/or participants at all 8 American Renaissance conferences. During 2006 American Renaissance Conference, David Duke, who is not a scheduled presenter, accused Jews of being a power that has led to the internal destruction of our will and spirit during a question and answer session. Taylor attempted to clear the air regarding Jewish participation in American Renaissance conferences with a piece in the May 2006 edition of the American Renaissance Journal, in which he wrote, "Jews have, from the outset, been equal participants in our efforts." However, he also compared the question of the role of Jews in society to questions over homosexuality, foreign policy, and abortion, and said that these issues should be openly debated in a free society. Affiliations. Jared Taylor maintains ties to a variety of racists and extremists, both domestically and internationally. He is on the editorial advisory board of Citizens Informer, the newspaper of the racist Council of Conservative Citizens, C of CC, and has contributed writings to the Occidental Quarterly, a racist journal. He has also been a member of the board of directors of the National Policy Institute, a self-styled think tank funded by William H. Regeny, an heir to the Regeny publishing fortune and funder of racist organizations and publications. Taylor also received monetary compensation from the Institute in 2005. Gordon Baum, head of the CFCC, and J. Philippe Rushton, the president of the Pioneer Fund, which promotes eugenics and race-based science, have both been presenters at conferences hosted by Taylor's publication, American Renaissance. Taylor's conferences attract a wide range of extremists. Recent attendees have included well-known racist and anti-Semite David Duke, Don Black, operator of Stormfront, a white supremacist online forum, Mark Webber, head of the Institute for Historical Review, a Holocaust denial organization, and members of various neo-Nazi groups. The American Renaissance website also promotes the work of other white supremacists by selling video and audio tapes of presentations from speakers at past American Renaissance conferences, including lectures by Gordon Baum and Sam Francis, a well-known racist who died in 2005. Taylor also has ties to European racists, including members of the British National Party, a racist far-right political party in England, and the National Front, a racist far-right French political party. Nick Griffin, the head of the BNP, has been a speaker at 2 American Renaissance conferences, including one held in 2006. Frédéric Legrand, a member of the National Front, is a frequent contributor to the American Renaissance. Taylor's portrayal of his racist views as intellectual inquiry enables him to maintain a position of a respectable academic source for racists, many of whom frequently cite his work. He and his admirers often cite his educational background, including a Yale undergraduate degree and mastery of Japanese and French, in order to grant his and their ideas a veneer of credibility. David Duke has posted articles written by Taylor and a review of one of Taylor's books to his website. The Institute for Historical Review reprinted Taylor's article, The Challenge of Multiculturalism, in the summer 1992 issue of its publication, The Journal of Historical Review. European Americans United, a neo-Nazi group, has posted Taylor's articles to its news website. The racist website VDare maintains a section of Taylor's articles, and the COCC's website designates the website of American Renaissance as one of its 2 top websites. Tactics. Jared Taylor promotes his white supremacist ideas primarily through the print publication American Renaissance, its companion website, and the biennial American Renaissance conferences. Taylor serves as the editor of American Renaissance and frequently contributes lengthy articles and book reviews to its pages. Many issues appear to be little more than his personal reflections on the state of race relations in contemporary America. The American Renaissance website consists mostly of links to daily news items with terse headlines that reflect the site's racist sensibility. The site also posts articles describing the attacks by blacks against whites, generally involving rape, murder, or both, and sells video and audio tapes of presentations from past American Renaissance conferences. The website also promotes a variety of books extolling racist views. Taylor's ties to a variety of racist organizations and individuals serve as an additional vehicle for him to promote his views. For example, he is on the editorial advisory board of Citizens Informer, the newspaper of the racist Council of Conservative Citizens, and has contributed writings to the Occidental Quarterly, a racist journal. Taylor has had some success in his efforts to gain exposure in mainstream media and universities. In these outlets, as in others, he presents himself as a legitimate scholar and has been abetted in this regard by hosts who have introduced him only as the editor of the American Renaissance, without providing any background on the publication or its contents. His appearance as a guest commentator on CNN's Paula Zahn Now in December 2006 is one example. He was also on the Queen Latifah show in December 2000. In 2007, Taylor generated significant publicity in the Canadian media through a council debate on racial diversity with David Devine, a professor of Black Canadian Studies at Dalhousie University in Halifax, Nova Scotia. And he also spoke at Clemson University in South Carolina at the invitation of the Clemson Conservatives, a student group. Background. Jared Taylor, also known as Samuel Jared Taylor, was born in Japan to missionary parents in 1951. He lived there until the age of 16 and attended Japanese public school until he was 12, gaining native fluency in Japanese. He attended Yale, graduating in 1973, and earned a master's degree in international economics at the Institute of Political Studies in Paris in 1978. His online resume indicates that he has also worked as an international lending officer for manufacturers Hanover Trust and has consulted for American companies seeking to do business in Japan, and was West Coast editor for PC Magazine from 1983 to 1988. He has also taught Japanese at the Harvard Summer School and worked as a courtroom translator. In 1983, Taylor drew upon his upbringing to write Shadows of the Rising Sun, a critical view of the Japanese miracle, a study of Japanese culture published by William Moreau. The book received generally good reviews and procedures the themes that Taylor would pursue more extensively with his current organization, the New Century Foundation. In particular, the idea that a nation needs a uniform culture and racial heritage to prosper. Taylor continued to refine his ideas about race and national identity during the next few years, gathering information he believes supported the idea that the United States faced a dangerous period of economic and cultural decline because it had rejected its white Anglo-Saxon heritage in the name of racial and gender equality. He eventually argued that social welfare programs and affirmative action sustained a largely minority underclass that sapped the nation's will and health. To promote this message, he began publishing the American Renaissance Journal in November 1990. American Renaissance. The stated purpose of the journal from the outset was to create a literate, undeceived journal of race, immigration, and the decline of civility. It held that, for a nation to be a nation and not just a crowd, it must consist of people that share the same culture, language, history, and aspirations. Under Taylor's stewardship, American Renaissance has largely avoided the use of crude racial stereotypes. Instead, its authors rely on pseudoscientific, sociological, and philosophical arguments to demonstrate the purported superiority of the white race and the threat non-white minorities pose to American society. The magazine remained largely unknown outside of extremist circles until late 1992, when Carolyn Graff, a small mainstream publisher, released Taylor's book, Paved with Good Intentions, The Failure of Race Relations in Contemporary America. A variety of publications reviewed the book, and some mainstream conservatives praised it. The Wall Street Journal called the book easily the most comprehensive indictment of the race-conscious civil rights policies of the last 3 decades, but also criticised Taylor's dismissal of the impact of racism on the black community, saying that he does little to improve the understanding or breach the racial gap. Peter Brimelow, who has since created the racist website VDare, was less equivocal in the National Review, declaring the book the most important to be published on the subject for many years. Commentary concluded that Paved with Good Intentions accurately reflects indignation shared by many who believe that the way America is dealing with its racial difficulties is unfair and self-defeating. The relative success of the book helped to raise interest in both American Renaissance and its message, and Taylor did his best to capitalize on its newfound notoriety. He convened the first of what became biennial conferences conducted under the banner of the New Century Foundation and later American Renaissance in May 1994. These gatherings soon became a centerpiece of his efforts, featuring well-known intellectual racists speaking in ostensibly academic seminars, lectures, and panel discussions.